Weston.
In August last year, the CNN Freedom Project aired a story profiling former Ford model CEO Katie Ford and her fight against human trafficking.
When I arrived, this Hungarian man picked me up in the airport, took me to his apartment in Long Island.
Before long, I realized that this guy was a pimp.
It's just so shocking. It is out of our consciousness.
6,000 miles from Ford's home in New York City, the story had an immediate impact. Francisca Awah, a 32-year-old from southwestern Cameroon, was watching from Kuwait. She says she had been trafficked there into domestic servitude. She contacted Katie Ford's organization and they began communicating via email.
This is the first time I have been contacted by somebody who was enslaved at that time.
Encouraged and advised by Ford, Awah managed to leave the household where she was working and take refuge in a friendly embassy. Katie Ford helped her pay for her flight home.
It's not what we do, and we couldn't afford to do it for everyone. But we had been through the whole thing with her. We had committed to helping her get out of that situation, so it seemed false for me to stop there.
Having arrived back in Africa, Awah was keen to tell us her story. So what happened when you arrived in Kuwait?
In Kuwait, just at the airport, my passport, my traveling documents were being seized. So I was just taken by a family that claimed that they were my sponsors. Immediately, I went home with them, and I found myself being a housemaid instead of the teaching job I was being promised before leaving Cameroon.
Awah says she was employed by a local agency. She moved households several times before arriving at one where she stayed 2 months. She says she saw her passport a couple of times, but it was never returned to her. Gradually, she says, the conditions worsened.
I have no time to rest. Even when the lady comes and meets me sitting in the kitchen, she'll ask me, Francisca, I bought you. You are like a commodity. You get up and walk. You come here, you need money. I pay you money, you walk.
She kept records, photos, and even videos on her phone. And whenever possible, she watched CNN.
Watching CNN Freedom Project was like giving me hopes that one day I will be like those people that they have helped.
Did you ever tell the family that you wanted to leave? Did you ever ask to leave?
I asked the wife severally, and the husband, I asked him once. I used the pretense of my son being a street child so that they can have pity on my son and allow me to go home. But the wife bluntly told me, she pointed to the television and said, you are like that television, I bought you. You can't go like that. My money is valuable. You have to pay my money back, and then you pay your flight before you leave to your country.
I did contact the man she worked for, and he denied they stopped her leaving, saying this was ultimately the agency's decision. He also denied his wife had demanded that she pay back the money they'd paid to the agency for her. He said she wasn't overworked, that she worked no more than 8 hours a day, as stated in the contract from the agency. He did admit, though, that she did not sign that contract. He said she had a telephone that they paid for and money for things like ice cream. As for her passport, he told me she had asked him to hold it for her safely. We offered him a chance to appear on CNN. He declined. The agency in Kuwait also refused to answer our questions. We did speak to a diplomat at the embassy where Awah took refuge when she left the house. He did not want to be named. He did, though, confirm the date she arrived and said she was sick and exhausted. He said he called and confronted the man whose house she had worked in. He convinced him to return her passport. Kuwait is classified as one of the most problematic countries in the world when it comes to human trafficking. The US Trafficking in Persons report ranks it as Tier 3, meaning it doesn't comply with the minimum standards of protecting trafficking victims. Kuwait did pass a landmark law in 2015 giving domestic workers enforceable labor rights, regulating pay and working hours. That is set to come into force this year.
Please, if you want to travel out, be very careful, especially going to...
As for Francisca Awah, she is now working on her own campaign to raise awareness about trafficking. Her mission is to try to stop other young people from following her path.
I have the passion in me for others who are still wanting to go there. I have that zeal in me to stop it in any means. And standing here to talk to you people today is to make them really know that what I'm saying is real. So my dear brothers and sisters...
Claire Sebastian, CNN, New York.